Hi, Kool E, Eric Bunda.
Hi.
Let's start from what's your origin story? How did you arrive as Kool E in Honolulu, Hawaii?
Wow.
And radio broadcasting and
You
music.
have 5 hours? Well, I was born in the Bay Area in Oakland, California. And all the way up till I was about maybe 8 years old. And then I moved out here to Hawaii. After high school, I moved back to the mainland. When I moved back to San Francisco, I would listen to all the different radio stations there. At the time, I got that itch, and I was like, oh, man, how do I get into radio? And, you know, what do I do? And somebody just told me, hey, go intern at any station and just see where it lands, you know? Mm-hmm. And I ended up calling this guy who was on the radio at night. His name was Doug Lee.
Okay.
And he was doing a slow jams show at the time. He was at Wild 107, and so I interned with him for about a good couple months. The way I actually knew Doug is through Brown Bags of Stardom. I was a contestant in the Brown Bags of Stardom.
Wait. Let's not skim over that. You were a contestant at a high school performance talent competition.
I don't know if you're familiar with Brown Bags of Stardom.
Some people may not be familiar with it.
Okay. So I got to break that down.
It's like a Hawaii school version of like a Star Search.
There you go.
But even Star Search is only for a particular generation.
Yes.
I mean, The Voice or So You Think You Can Dance, and it was open to public and private schools.
Right.
But what I want you to point out is, what was your talent?
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we used to sing and dance. So we were like the new addition. Our group consisted of like 6 guys, and we'd sing and dance like, I don't know if you're familiar with New Kids on the Block and New Edition and that, So that was us, a local version.
And what were you called?
We were called Club Supremacy.
From what campus?
From Wailua High School. We made it all the way to the finals at the Blaisdell, which is like right on the block. In fact, our judge was Glenn Medeiros. We were in this group. We won that year. So that's how I knew Doug, because Doug was the DJ that introduced us at Brown Bags of Stardom. Going back to San Francisco, so when I was interning with Doug Lee at his station, I heard that there was an opening out here in Hawaii. Okay. And at the time, it was called Hot I-94. I moved back home, and I started with Rory Wild and Danielle Tucker. I was their stunt guy, maybe 93, 94.
And what was your name when you were on the air?
Stunt Boy. How cool is that, right? It doesn't get any better. Rory would, tell me to go out in the streets and do some crazy stuff. And so that's how I kind of got started back here with radio in Hawaii. So that lasted maybe 2 years.
That's a good run.
It was a good run. And then everybody knows who Lanai is.
Lanai boy.
Lanai boy at the time. And he wanted to start a crew at night because he was offered to do nights. So that's how Lanai and the Loose Crew came about. I was a part of that with Augie T. And then we also had Fresca. And Fresca was also from the Bay Area. So there was all 3 of us at night, 4 of us. We were number 1 at night, and that was a great run. That lasted till another 3-4 years. Then I think it was time for me to go on my own and see if I could really do this.
Let's talk about that. When did you become from stunt boy to DJ Kool E?
DJ Kool E was always in the background, like me spinning, but of course I wanted to pursue radio at the same time. How I got the name, first of all, is that me and Cutmaster Spaz were like best friends. We still are friends till today. We would hang out, and we were like brothers. I think it was from Brown Bags of Stardom, I want to say, yeah. So we met through there, and ever since we've been friends, and then we would go all kinds of places. We went to New York together. We pretty much traveled the different outer islands at the time. So we were sitting down at, I think at Denny's or something in Maui, because we were on tour with Miss America at the time.
Ooh, what year was this?
Maybe 96, 97. Also with Alan Arato. It was like a music with a message, if you guys remember that. That was around the same time too. And so we would hit all the outer islands in different schools and give a positive message to the kids and stuff like that. So anyways, we were sitting at Denny's one day and Spaz was like, man, we need to come up with a name for you. I was like, I think Eric's fine. He goes, okay, all right, describe you. Like, what do people call you? I said, well, going out on the streets when Rory would, send me out there, people would be like, I would hook them up with CDs or I would throw them a free CD or a free sticker. And they're like, oh, man, you're cool. Ding! That's it. And then Spaz was like, oh, your first name is Eric, so your initials is E. Why don't we call you Kool E? And that was the birth of Kool E, like the name. But it's funny because when I was on the Lanai show, when we had first introduced who Kool E was, they thought I was Hawaiian because they thought it was K-U-I.
Oh, like Kool E, the
like
singer.
Kool E or Kool E. And I was like, I said, no, I'm Filipino. I was like, sorry. And another funny story, Sudden Rush, if you guys remember, big props out to those guys for Hawaii hip hop. I believe their name of their album was Kool E or something. So people would ask me, hey, I saw your shirt in TNC. I'm like, oh, for real? I'm like, oh, no, that's not my shirt. That's Kool E. It's different. I'm KOOL-E. I've had that name till today. I mean, yeah, I haven't changed it. So
you shared that your love of music and spinning, it predates radio, getting into radio. So were you, like so many in the 1980s, 1990s, a bedroom DJ? Did you have your own turntables and records?
So going back a little bit, I come from like a musical background. My parents, my mom plays the piano. My dad managed bands. So as a little kid, I was always going around at their gigs or whatnot. And so I think that's where I got sparked with the music side. But they also had collections of vinyl back then. And so I was curious one day and I saw the vinyl and I was like, hey, what is this? And I picked up this one record, not knowing what it was until later I put the needle on the record. And it was Jane Fonda workout session. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but so that was kind of like my first record I actually put on, and I was like, wow, this is interesting, like how the needle is like playing this record and it's going around and around, and that sparked an interest in me. And then the next thing I know, our next door neighbor, they had a wedding, and they asked me to DJ their wedding, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was only in 4th grade. This was crazy because I lived in a place out in Tracy, California, which is pretty much at that time was all country like area. And in fact, their wedding was, their theme was like country. So the first song I actually ever played on vinyl was Kenny Rogers. Lady, yeah, it was their wedding song, or
their first dance.
Yes, their first dance. So of course I didn't have 2 turntables. I only had 1 turntable, and I would have to, like, after the song, I would go to the next track, pick up the needle, and that's how like I played the records. Like I would take one record off and put the other one on, and then they would dance, and then they would wait. Yeah, so that was like my first encounter with like, DJing for someone. After that, my parents bought me a double-cassette radio from Sears, and I would do this thing, pause, stop, and that was my first mixes that I was making. I would just like grab songs of different parts of the songs of different, elements of it, and pause and record, and that's how I made my mixes.
How did you figure it out?
I believe like Electric Boogaloo and Beat Street was out, and I kind of, when I watched that movie, I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, how do they make the mixes and stuff like that? And then I would just hear it at school or something like, oh yeah, you should get a double-cassette radio and you can pause and record. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that's how I started my own mixes and stuff like that. Actually, of course, when you're DJing, part of the equipment that you get is 2 turntables and a mixer, right? So my first mixer, and I'm sure a lot of DJs would tell you this, is we got it from Radio Shack because Radio Shack was the place to go to get, your stuff back in the day. My parents, during Christmas, and, some kids want toys. I wanted a mixer from Radio Shack. And I got my first mixer from Radio Shack on Christmas on my, maybe 9th birthday, when I was 9 years old, sorry.
There was no internet. There was only newspaper ads. And on Sundays, there would be coupons and these really fat pamphlets advertising different retailers.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
She cut it out of an ad, and she went to Radio Shack and told the guy, this is what my son wants for Christmas.
Do you remember the first record or musical artist that captured your imagination?
Every year, my parents would send me to the mainland. Like I said, I was born in Oakland, so I would come to Hawaii, then I would go back home or go back to the Bay Area. And so there was a station called KMEL. The guy that really captured me was a guy till this day, and rest in peace, Cameron Paul. He was one of the, this guy who could mix, okay, just put it this way, every time his mix came on, I was by my radio, like a radio groupie, and on pause, when record, when that 6 o'clock came, that mix came, boom, I'm there, and I'm hitting the unpause button to record his mixes. And I've got tapes and tapes of this guy's mixes. So,
can you describe the quality of his style of mixing and DJing? What made him stand out?
His mixes were almost flawless. I mean,
and it's all live back then too.
Yeah, and the blends was just awesome. When you're mixing 2 songs and you can't tell that the songs just changed, I mean, that's how good, somebody's that good. And he was that good. And he could mix songs, every 4 counts, a new song is coming in. It's like bam, bam, bam. Back then they would call it power mixing. So you would hear maybe 4 or 5 seconds of the song, another song's coming in, and another song. I mean, he was known for that. And so that's what made him stand out a lot from all the other DJs. Of course, they used to broadcast live from all these clubs. Of course, I wasn't old enough. I was only 10 years old. I'm like, wow, I wish I could be there. But I would record him live at the club, and I would have that mix too in my collection. And yeah, this guy was just unbelievable. Here's the crazy part. So when I was working at Wild 107 at the time,
San Francisco,
they did a thing where they wanted to bring Cameron Paul back, like a tribute to him. That station was able to get behind him, and I was interning at the station at that time, and he was at the club, and he was just standing, just like how you're standing, 10 feet away from me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm standing next to the guy and he shook my hand, and that's pretty much it. I was too scared to kind of talk to him at the time. So I was able to meet him. At the same time, so I want to say, my first vinyls were of records was his collection. He had his mixes on vinyl.
What?
Yes, and they would call it. They called it Mix It record, and he would have 1 through, gosh, I want to say 50 maybe. And I collected every single one. I mean, that's how much of a fan I was to this guy.
What is your wife's name?
Lynndy.
She and your children, you have
Yes.
4 children,
Yes.
and their names are?
So my oldest is Breon. She's 27, and then she has 2 kids, Leo and Kason. So I have grandchildren. Derek, who is a senior this year at Damien. He's going to be graduating. And then I have the middle one, Jace. He's like my mini-me. And then I have my youngest, who is Hope, who is in 4th grade.
So much props to your wife
Yes.
and family
Yes.
for being more than understanding and supporting you.
Yeah.
How did your you and your wife meet, and did she understand what she was getting involved with
Yeah.
your
I'm
music
right.
addiction?
Like, I'm marrying him and his equipment, right? I mean, we were simple back then. We met through a mutual friend and at the time, and we hit it off. And she's great. She's always supported everything that I did. And in fact, when we had bought our first house, I had a studio just for myself. I said, if we buy a house, I want, my own studio so I can put my records and I can just lock myself in there. And then, then I did that too much. And they're like, are you ever going to come? My house was only 2 feet away, but so it was separate from the house. But yes, I mean, till this day, I still have like my collection in storage and, of vinyl and stuff like that. So I kept those and my recorded mixes that I collected over the years. I downsized a lot. I had to after we moved. I blessed another DJ with some of my vinyl because I feel like if it's gonna go to somebody, I want this person to, know that these are records that are special to me. And so I say maybe I'm probably down to maybe 1,000.
Where did you first professionally become DJ Kool E?
Yeah, I pretty much just ran with that name ever since. And I mean, it felt weird in the beginning, like when they asked, "Oh, what's your DJ name?" I'm like, Kool E, because I wasn't used to them calling me that yet until like you heard it from like kids, or they're like, "Hey, Kool E, nice meeting you." We would go to the schools, or and they would call me by that name. I mean, I guess that would be like the first time I'm like, wow, okay, this is real. This is Kool E. So when I was doing nights with Lanai, on the side, of course, I had to make a living, and that part of living was actually at the nightclub. The nightclub that I first started was like at Scruples in Waikiki, which is Play Bar now, I believe. Yeah, the residency there during 95, 96.
Do you remember the kind of music that was featured? Could you just play whatever you wanted to?
So Scruples, if you don't know, is in Waikiki, so there's a lot of tourists. So, of course, you got to play that wide range, right? I mean, from country to rock and that's where I learned how to play all of that. And I'm so grateful that I did go through that, because I wasn't just stuck to one genre of music, right? I'm like, it's like, oh, there's a bunch of country people coming in that like country. And then the next thing you know, it's like, okay, I'm spinning Snoop Dogg and, Warren G at the time. And then now I'm playing some alternative music. And that's where, I also learned some of that stuff, house. And it was a wide range. And like I said, I'm grateful that I spun at that club, because that's where I learned all my different, how to transition to different music.
What do you like listening to? Whatever your wife likes listening to.
To be honest, so like if I'm like done at a club, or if I am cruising in my car, honestly, it's like I don't really try to listen to anything, because I just pounded my ears for 4 or 5 hours of music. And sometimes you just want to just be silent, like, relax your ears and just have kind of a peace and quiet time just to wind down. And then maybe later on during the day, or when I wake up, I'll listen to music again. But that was kind of like my routine. Like, anything. If I'm off the radio, I turned off my radio because I'd listen to all the music the entire time for 6 hours of my shift. It's like, I want that peace and quiet just to settle in, kind of reprogram my mind so now I can attend to the kids and I can be, you gotta reprogram yourself. Yeah. So
When did you arrive at KDDB at 1027 The Bomb doing afternoons?
I came over in 97. Our location at that time was at 711 Kapiolani Boulevard. From 1997 till now, I've been blessed to be around many greats who've come, and I'm able to still do this as a living, man. This is unbelievable. I'm going probably maybe over a little 25 years or maybe 30. I haven't really counted on my fingers because I don't have enough fingers. It's been an amazing ride, and up till now. And here's my thing: is like I want to be able to help somebody else out, and that maybe wants to get into radio, or they have the passion to get into something like this. And that's what I've been doing. On the DJ side is also mentoring a lot of different DJs that are coming up, and help them get to where they want to go and what's their dreams and passions.
Let's talk about your mobile business.
Let's take that back to 1987. What are they doing at 14 in this day and age? But for me, there was a guy named Lance, and me and him, we went to school together. And it's funny because his parents would be our drivers to get to the gigs. They would, they had a truck, and I would use my mom's stereo, and she had a Fisher from rent to own. We would use her speakers, and I remember one time we were at a gig and we blew those speakers, and she's like, "You're not using my stuff anymore because, now you just blown the speaker." And so we saved up enough money from a gig. I believe I want to say Easy Music was Music Mac back in the day, before it changed the name, and that's where we got our first speakers from. That was the beginning of the whole mobile thing. And so ever since then, I grew up in Wailua, and it's very country out there, and everybody knows everybody. So we would do everybody's graduations and parties and stuff like that. So that's how that got started. Everything was always just word of mouth. It's like, "Hey, can you do my party?" Shoots. This is where it is today. I mean, today I have like maybe four or five guys that help run the mobile. We do parties, weddings, and whatnot. So
All the uplights and...
Oh, yeah, uplighting, yeah. All the different effects that they have till today.
What is the company called?
Kool Productions. The Kool Productions technically kind of just started maybe in the last 10, 15 years, yeah. Where I said, okay, I want to do this, on a professional level.
Do you call yourself a DJ, or do you spin music or mix music? How do you identify yourself?
The party rocker. the one that brings the music and just rocks the party. I don't know. I mean, yeah, you call it what you want. I mean, we're good.
Being a young man in the world, are there people that come to mind now that you're a little bit older and wiser, a grandparent, parent, husband, sibling, and all those kinds of things, a son and a friend? Who do you think back to as being significant persons in your life?
There's one guy that I really probably have to thank, and going back to brown bags, after brown bags after we won. We needed guidance, of course, and here comes an awesome teacher. He was a counselor at the time, and his name is Dan the Man. He is the man. That's why they call him Dan the Man. But here's the crazy thing. He was like, he was a counselor, and then I found out he was a DJ, and I'm like, wait, what? We have a counselor that's a DJ, and he used to be the residence DJ at the Point After back in the day. How crazy is that? He became my mentor. Like, he literally taught me how to mix properly, how to BPM, because at the time I would just mix records like, oh, this, sounds good, but not mixing on the counts. And he taught me the whole thing about DJing, and he even would spend time, after school we would mix, and then he would also go to the record pool for me because I wasn't old enough to drive to Waikiki because I was still in high school, and he would pick up an extra vinyl for me, whatever records that I wanted. I got to give a big shout out to that guy. He's probably the reason why I'm still mixing and doing this today, so big shout out to Dan the Man.
You're going to be traveling to California.
Yes.
February 2023. And what can you share about why you're going to California for your health?
So in 2020, I had a emergency scare, you would say, that I was bleeding in my esophagus, and so then I was rushed to the hospital and had to get a blood transfusion and all that, and they ran tests, and as they were running their tests at the time, at the end of that whole craziness, they found out that my liver, I had some liver damage, and that there may be a potentially I would have to need a liver transplant. And so ever since that had happened, they've been running tests, and just in 2021, we found out that they recommended me to different transplants across the United States. But because I was familiar with San Francisco area, I chose UCSF to do the transplant for me. So I had to go through some crazy tests first, and then to determine if my body can take the transplant. So that's how we're here now. And I'll be leaving on February 1st. And then once I'm in San Francisco, I will be put on the actual active list, and then that's when I'll be on standby for the liver donor.
There's a website to help because the financial demands are beyond what traditional health insurance is able to provide.
Yes.
Do you have the website?
Yeah, you can see the website right here. I'm blessed that my dad is able to come with me. Of course, my wife has to take care of the kids, and of course, take care of stuff here on the front line. So, wasn't for her too. I mean, these guys are my biggest supporters. I mean, they've, we had a conversation with the kids, and they're okay with it. Of course, it's naturally to feel a certain way, and I know as a young kid, having to see their dad go through this, it's, heartbreaking for them sometimes. But for the most part, they've been strong, and I've learned so much from them, being the way they are. They're very loving and supportive in this whole process. So
It takes a village.
It really does. And ever since we launched, and I kind of told my story about this whole transplant. It's been amazing. I mean, just on social media, it's just like when we first did the post, it just went like a wildfire, and the people just been pouring in and donating and just encouraging. Like, you really don't know how much people you touch over the many years. And I'm so grateful. Because there's people that really do care out there that want you to live. Sorry. And I really want to thank everyone. We're doing a fundraiser tonight, and these guys, I didn't say anything about, my whole liver transplant, and when they found out, they're like, how can we help? And so, they want to help and give the proceeds and donate. And I'm just truly blessed to have, friends and family and people that I don't even know, and that just want to donate and just help, even just prayer, it doesn't always have to be about money. For me, I'm a faith believer, and I believe God's gonna get me through this, and I'm gonna come out victorious. So, like I said, over the years, it's all about relationship and keep and building that relationship with one another, and even if they did you wrong or whatever it is, or like, forgive them and move on. And because when you come into situations like this, and you man, people are really there for you. You just don't know.
Well, I want to remind you, Kool E, that
Yes.
because of your mobile business and because of what you do on the radio, for most good souls, like, don't realize that the little bit of goodness goes a long way. So
Yes.
I hope you weren't surprised that people showed out and are showing up for you. It shouldn't be
Yeah.
surprising, but I hear the gratitude,
Yeah.
the gratefulness,
Yes.
the grace in it all.
You said all the words I wanted to say. Being behind this mic, of course, you don't see the other person on the other side, and but when you do see them in person, you're like, you just want to give them a big hug and be like, my gosh, yeah, I've been listening to you ever since I was small, or So it's always, that's what keeps me going, and like, if it's one person, two person, I don't care what, if I touched you in some way and put a smile on your face, hey, that's what I was here for.